This is a sculpture I have titled The Hope. It's the last in a series of 3 sculptures I've worked on during COVID. All 3 use organs in the human body brought outside the body to represent certain concepts and metaphors that I want each piece to have. The first piece was the kidneys. The kidneys remove toxins. These toxins became emotional toxins that I allowed the sculpture to develop around that concept. The second piece was the heart opening up in forgiveness. I took a human heart, put it on the outside of the framework of Chastity Couture, and the heart would start beating, and as it opened up, it would represent forgiveness. After forgiveness, there's hope. And the hope, in this case, is a baby, a child being born, but also being protected. Again, around the concept of safe but sexy, safe but secure, but at the same time, very much an inward type of concept. What I wound up doing on this piece is I started with the back. The back reaches out to people just like the early pieces of Chastity Couture I did, where they're very lovely and very flamboyant and very fashion-like. So these beautiful lines reach out in the public, and the public says, look at, you're saying, look at me, look at how beautiful. As the piece turns around, something happens. All of a sudden, all the energy, rather than being directed out, look at me, look at how beautiful I am, all of a sudden it starts being focused into the stomach, into the uterus. And this piece that covers the uterus is a protective shell that works well with the idea of the chastity belt being an anti-rape device, a protective device. At the same time, the protective shell is protecting this time, not the woman as much as the baby inside the uterus. This piece has some really interesting kinetic features to it. It has these air cylinders here and here. And when the air cylinders are activated by a little switch right up here, the piece starts contractions, for no better word, and begins to open. As the piece opens up inside, you'll see a baby being protected inside the stomach and also hugged within the uterus of the woman. The uterus, like the heart and like the kidneys of the last 2 pieces, are anatomically correct, and they're, again, an organ on the inside of the body that represents something of a narrative that I want to say on the piece. Let's demonstrate this. The sequence that I'm using when I'm using the compressed air to activate these air cylinders is like muscles pushing and opening up over and over again. I'll try to bring the camera closer. And if you look in here carefully, we'll have to get the camera a little lower, but right under here is the uterus and the baby inside the uterus. Skeleton that makes up the corset that goes around the woman's body is made entirely of tubing. The tubing has been forged and split and stretched and tapered to get these wonderful organic shapes. This is a piece of tubing. These are pieces of tubing. Imagine a round piece of tubing, but then it's split open and then hammered to a taper. That's how these forms are made. And the beauty of this, besides the shapes being elegant and very compatible with the human body, the beauty of these shapes is that they're very, very light, considering the size of the actual piece of metal. So a piece that would normally weigh, if this was solid steel, it might weigh 100 pounds. And this whole sculpture doesn't weigh more than 35 pounds. So you can wear it easily on the runway. The pneumatics run off of about 150 psi. The red hoses you see here are the pressure lines. Most of the retractable mechanisms on the sculpture are spring retraction. Here's one that's fit into the design, and there's another one on the back side. The two cylinders push this piece of tubing between two prongs. When the prongs spread apart, the sides of the stomach open up. They're also connected to these linkages, which pull down on the shoulder and press on the shoulders. There are lots of other little details on the piece, a lot of little gemstones. A lot of the bolts and nuts have little gemstones on the caps. There's some amethyst, there's some garnets, there's some synthetic stones. It gives it a little bit of a glitz. My background is as a jeweler, so I certainly want to add as much jewelry touch, a little refinement that a jeweler might use on a sculpture. My name is Ira Sherman. I'm a sculptor in Denver, Colorado. And for the last 20 years, I've been working on a collection of 25 pieces I call Chastity Couture.